Welcome to 2B Scene, everybody. This is Comic Conversation, and I am Brandon, your host. We're doing part 2 of Absolute Carnage, and I couldn't do it alone. I had to bring a friend with me. This is my buddy, Chris. I've known him for many years. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good. How you doing? How you doing, buddy?
I'm feeling good, and I'm excited to have you here. Video game collector, representing, got the Street Fighter cap right here. Rapper extraordinaire. I'm still in love with the Punch-Out rap that we saw on IGN.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And just a comic book lover like me.
Yes.
And so I'm excited. I didn't even know you were gonna be in town.
That just happens, man. I happen to pop up randomly, so it's always a surprise. I never let anyone know that I'm coming. I'm just there.
Yeah, and well, I'm glad you're here, because now I have something to talk about. Absolute Carnage, and we're going to talk about Venom in general. Because I have some questions, and I have some feelings about Venom myself, but it's nice to get someone else's opinion on this.
Exactly.
You ready to jump into this?
I'm here for it, buddy. Tag me in.
Alright, let's do it. Where we last left off was Absolute Carnage number 3, and we saw the Venom Symbiote leave Eddie Brock, and he covered himself onto Bruce Banner and became the Venom Hulk? How would you phrase that?
Yeah.
A Venomized Hulk?
Unless we're gonna call him Volk. But let's not forget to note that Hulk is so big that the Venom symbiote couldn't cover his full body. So it's kind of on there just like someone had spilled oil on the Hulk.
What I thought was really fun is you always hear the part where we are Venom. That's almost like Marvel's I Am Batman.
Yeah.
You know, or we are Venom. But he couldn't even do that with the Hulk. And Hulk, it was we are Hulk.
Yes, yeah.
So I thought it was really cool that it kept the Hulk personality.
Yeah, I guess the Hulk mentality or the spirit of the Hulk, I guess, kind of overpowered the Venomness. The Venom usually takes over and speaks for itself, but I guess Hulk took over on that one.
I thought it was a dope look. You got the Venom symbiote, you got some gamma green eyes, and that's how number 4 starts. It starts with Venomized Hulk crashing and tumbling with Carnage, who's not even the same Carnage. I know I've mentioned that before, but if you haven't checked out Absolute Carnage, S.C.I.T.H.E has just a whole bunch of collection of kind of like almost like DNA strands. What do you call the codices? The codices?
Codices. Yeah. That's the word of the day. Codices, not codexes.
Yeah.
Codices.
Codices. And it's comprised of many people, both normal people from like Broxton, Oklahoma, to heroes and villains that he's collected himself, like Matt Gargan, the Scorpion.
Yes.
And it's made him very powerful, and this is all part of a plot, not just from S.C.I.T.H.E, but the Cult of Carnage to raise, or awaken, maybe not raise, awaken the god Knull. Can you tell me about Knull?
Alright, now Knull, he's been around longer than we knew, of course with Marvel, jumping back into his history and then placing him in certain events that we may not have known of. Now, most of you guys would know where Nowhere is. I'm not saying nowhere, I'm saying nowhere. Knull actually created that when he chopped off the head of a Celestial. And then he made that like his little, I'd say, what's the place where blacksmiths work at? Like their little workshop? That was like his workshop where he came up with the symbiote. He created the symbiote inside the head of a Celestial, which is Nowhere. And that was his little spot. Now Knull is a god. He's basically the god of the symbiotes. And you guys were actually first introduced to him in Thor, kind of, when Gore the God Butcher was actually using the Necro Sword, which is the weapon that Knull created. So yeah, basically, long story short, Knull's been around for a long time. Knull, we come to find out, is the god of the symbiotes. So the symbiotes just didn't come from some planet. They weren't just some goo that were just hanging around and started attaching themselves to people. This was all predestined and predetermined by Knull, and he had these plans in the works for what's longer than a century? Eons, let's say.
Yeah. Eons is a good one. Yeah,
eons.
And it's been amazing watching Donny Cates write the whole like Venom storyline even before Absolute Carnage, because he's tied himself into Thor, he's tied himself into the Weapon X program.
Yeah.
You mentioned that Knull was on Nowhere. Like that wasn't something that was mentioned in Thor. This was Donny Cates kind of I feel like he took Venom and his story and his backstory, his history, and made him more grounded into the entire Marvel universe.
Yes,
he's no longer just a Spider-Man character. He has roots in the Marvel history now.
Yeah, because as many of you guys can recall, depending on how long you've been reading comic books, Venom was basically always just the bad Spider-Man. Same thing as Spider-Man, cooler costume, some may say, and he was just always the bigger, more powerful Spider-Man counterpart. And that's kind of always where he stood, and now they're actually diving into his background and giving him more of a personality and giving him more of a history so that he can be more of his own character and branch off instead of just always being kind of, I wouldn't say second fiddle to Spider-Man, but just an important counterpart, let's say.
Let me ask you a question, because I think that was a perfect explanation of how maybe it's not exactly who Venom is, definitely who Venom was.
Yeah.
And what he's trying to become, or what maybe Marvel is trying to make him, or Donny Cates. I don't know who to give the entire credit. But Donny Cates has definitely been like the, we talked about being a blacksmith. He's definitely been like an architect to Venom's story right now. But it's interesting that you brought him up as the bad Spider-Man, because there's a segment in this issue, because now the symbiote has left Eddie Brock.
Yeah.
Eddie Brock is vulnerable, and he's in the same place where Carnage is and a Venomized Hulk is. He's not safe. He's still trying to look out for his son that doesn't even know he's his son, and there's still some secrets about Dylan as well.
Yes.
But before we jump on any of that, there's a segment where a very vulnerable Eddie Brock, he's trying to protect his son. Peter Parker, there is Spider-Man, is letting him know, hey, we got to get you to safety. And Eddie resists. He's like, I'm not gonna not fight. You know, we've got Captain America, Wolverine, and I believe Thing, all vulnerable right now because one of the allies Venom has made in this crossover was the Maker.
Yes. And
the Maker was trying to remove codices from these heroes without killing them, because that's what Carnage's plan was. He was just snatching them out of their spine.
Exactly.
So while they were vulnerable, it was really just Spider-Man and Eddie Brock. And Eddie goes to like an armory where I guess everybody left their stuff.
Yep.
And he carries Captain America's shield very briefly. I think he had maybe one of, I don't know if it was one of the Maker's weapons or maybe something that Miles Morales had. I don't know what, but he had something on his arm.
I think that was a gauntlet from the jury.
It was the jury. There we go.
Yep.
Seeing him with this, he goes and says, and I quote, "I can pretend to be a hero for 10 minutes." That means even now, even though he's been like, what's the word they use? He's not just a vigilante. He's
an anti-hero.
He's an anti-hero. I can't believe I'm forgetting the term right now. But he's the, he's the lethal protector. There you go.
Lethal protector, yeah.
So even though he's a good guy, so to speak, or a hero at times when he wants to be, he doesn't see himself as a hero. He actually goes and says, "I can be a hero for 10 minutes." Now, I guess my question to you is, do you agree with that assessment that Eddie's not a hero, or do you even think do you see him as a hero? What's your feelings on Brock?
I would say Venom is every bit as much of a hero as Punisher is.
Okay.
So you see how in the way they both have a moral code and they both consider themselves heroes at heart, but they're not scared to use lethal force to, as a means to an end. Mm-hmm. So if they have to kill somebody, if they feel it's for the greater good, they're not scared to do that.
Right.
And Venom is very much in that same way where he doesn't mind taking someone's life if it means he's going to protect everyone else, or even if he has to knock out a good guy to get to the bad guy, he's willing to do that because he has a moral code and he believes in it so strongly that he's not afraid to break some bones or snap some necks if he feels that it's going to protect everyone else. So yeah, I feel that he is the lethal protector title fits him perfectly. He's a lethal protector. It's exactly what he is.
And I agree with that. I just think it's weird when you look at the comic book industry in general. It's hard to have an evolution sometimes with your characters because you have so many different aspects. You got the video game aspect, the cartoon aspect, the for kids aspect, the movies, the things that are, you know, for adults specifically. Venom, like, you know, I have a Switch. I recently got Marvel Ultimate Alliance number 3, and I saw Venom on there, and Venom's not this Venom. Venom seems very old school, bad guy, monster.
Eat your brain.
Yes! So it's hard to evolve that. I feel like Donny Cates is really, really trying, in cohesion to a certain extent with the movie, we're really trying to push the narrative that while lethal and maybe not a good guy, Venom is, at his heart, heroic.
Yeah.
So I hope to, I'm looking forward to seeing more of the Riot and more Venom because I'm excited and we know there's more to come. This issue ends though with the reveal that the Maker wasn't actually removing and destroying codices, but actually collecting them.
Evil plots.
And, you know, the Maker, for those who don't know, is the Ultimate Universe's version of Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, who's just as smart, if not smarter, or maybe just able to come to some different creations because he's a little more ruthless, less ethical.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know exactly what he looks like, he basically looks like Reed Richards in kind of the same blue suit. But he wears a big metal corn on the cob on his head.
It's
That's
so
what it
weird.
like, yeah.
Like, he kind of reminds me of, like, the She Quattro.
Yeah.
And he's flexible, too. So, you know, you really get that trim. Just,
all around the
It's
edges.
a really weird-looking helmet. You know, that's how you know he's evil. Good guys don't wear helmets like that.
He wouldn't wear something like that.
No.
Like a metal toenail. But yeah, we do have some cool stuff going on in these Absolute Carnage comics. And it just ties in histories and decades of all the different symbiote events that have happened, whether we're talking about they had Maximum Carnage, then you had the Venomverse, and then you had all the other ones, and you had let's say Spider Island, where even some symbiote stuff was going on there.
Think about it. I think even when Bendis was doing Mighty Avengers way back, there was just like everyone got like Venomized. All the Avengers got Venomized. Mm-hmm. So it's like anyone who's ever been touched by the symbiote is now being like collected, whether it be by Carnage or by the Maker. And Venom, or should I say Eddie Brock, who's now symbioteless, realizes that he can't do nothing. He has to do something. We're at the last, we're at the end of the goalpost, and you know who has the ball? It ain't Brock.
Definitely not. Definitely not. And another thing that I wanted to mention while we're there is, all right, so now at this point we have a few different people who've been Carnage. So we have Cletus Cassidy, which is always going to be the main, you know, top banana when it comes to that. But you also have Norman Osborn, who grew fond of the symbiote and that type of power, and at one point was the Red Goblin. So there's kind of a conflict going on between Cletus and Norman Osborn.
He looks like him.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like his DNA itself is being changed by the Carnage virus.
Yeah.
It's a bit sick.
Definitely.
And what's strange is that we do see that he's mentioned, like he's involved in issues 1, 2, and 3. He's not as present.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think he's there towards the end, which kind of it gets my spider. It gets my Peter Tingle going.
We're going with the Peter Tingle.
Yeah,
now.
we're going with the Peter Tingle.
Peter Tingle.
Because like I know he's out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it only leaves the door open for what's going to possibly happen in the future. Because I'm not going to lie, I was with the whole Red Goblin thing. I thought that was pretty cool. And even Norman, as crazy as he is as the Green Goblin, having that Carnage symbiote on him, I mean, he's already one of Spider-Man's deadliest foes. Adding that just makes him, I think at that point, he can become like a major level threat. which he is already to me.
I'm hyped for getting to it because personally, I had boycotted Spider-Man after Brand New Day, and so I'm currently like I already have the Marvel Unlimited app.
Yeah.
So now I'm reading like 10 years of like Spider-Man story.
Good.
And I'm towards the end of End of the World, the Doc Ock story, and so there's I still haven't even reached the Red Goblin. But I know it's coming, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. I know he's there, and I know he's lingering here.
And when you get there, trust me, it's gonna be you're gonna have a very nice, euphoric, explosive feeling. Let me hold off on that sound.
No, please do. I don't want to get demonetized. Yeah. I earned a whole 10 cents.
But that Red Goblin reveal is it's gonna be everything, man.
Oh no, I'm super hyped for it.
And, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no, go for
cutting
it.
into just to see how far they've been setting the seeds for these events, even way back from Brand New Day and all the things that led up to this. You're gonna have fun catching up. And these comics are gonna end up making more sense to you because you have to. I'd say to get the full enjoyment out of this, you kind of have to read into the Venom comic books and all the stuff that's been going on. All the different,
a ton of back reading.
Yeah, all the different people that have been Venom. You know, yes. Matt Gargan being one of my favorites, but then you have to read into Angelo Fortunato and all that other stuff. So all those things, once you really absorb them, and then you look back at this, it's gonna make so much more sense to you, and it's gonna be more fulfilling. So I'm happy that you're going through it, buddy. Marvel magic.
There you go. Wonderful.
Right. How did that happen?
I don't know, but we're just about finished with 4. And now we're about to jump into 5. 4 ends with Brock releasing all of that yummy symbiote juice, it looked like. Like he breaks open the Codices tank. I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, but it was literally just like black sludge, just goo.
Yeah.
Like I didn't expect entire symbiotes to pour out, but it was like, it was almost as if he was drowning in everyone's symbiote.
Yeah. And
became a much stronger Venom than ever before, I guess you would say. And that sounds like hyperbole, and you know, anytime you get like the return of someone, it's always better than ever.
Yeah.
But supposedly the way that it's explained, the way that we're hearing from Brock's perspective is he can feel Cap's military training. He can feel Logan's rage. He can feel the brute strength of the Thing. Anyone who's ever been the Venom or had a symbiote around him, he can tap into that. It almost kind of reminds me of like Rogue a little bit. When Rogue's powers evolved, it was no longer I can just touch you and get your powers and memories. She can actually think back and pull from any of the, you know, her armory of powers.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the vibe I got from Venom. I'm a little hyped for him because now like this really gives him a bump. This is like Super Saiyan Blue Venom right now.
Yeah.
All right, not. I know, not literally. He's nowhere near Goku's strength. I'm just saying, he's powered up.
Yeah. So basically, what this is called for us Spanish people, it's called the Sancocho effect. Okay. you know in Sancocho you put a little bit of everything just to make it just right, and you know all different types of flavors and stuff going on in there. Venom has been hit with the Sancocho effect, so he has a little bit of everybody's powers. For those of you who don't know what Sancocho is, let's just call it, it's jambalaya. Jambalaya would kind of be its English counterpart. But yeah, so the jambalaya effect, he has all that goodness on him now, and enjoyable for everybody.
So good.
Yeah.
Now, 5, before I even like jump into 5, I want to talk about Marvel events in general. I always feel like the conclusion of the episode, it's tough with Absolute Carnage because it doesn't like really fit into the same narrative. But I feel like whether it's the whether it be the Skrull invasion or we're looking at the Civil War, I always feel like the last issue is a little disappointing.
Yeah.
I didn't feel as disappointed with this one, but I would say I'm gonna use I'm gonna use Civil War, or no, I'm gonna use the Skrull Invasion. But when the Skrull Invasion's final issue happened, Skrull Invasion itself was already basically over, and they were revealing that Norman Osborn is the one who took the shot, and you know that. But we didn't really. I feel like we didn't see it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that happens a lot in Marvel crossovers. This was I don't know if I want to say the second crossover of 2019, but it was the second summer crossover of 2019 for Marvel. This followed the War of Realms, which really disappointed me. Absolute Carnage, I was actually very pleased with this ending, but I was also made very aware that even though this is ending, and it's ending in this issue, and we did kind of get our Venom Carnage main event, the big boss is still to come.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm jumping the gun right now by
you
saying
are
that,
definitely not, because this ending felt more like the first issue of what's to come next.
Yeah.
So this wasn't really an ending. This is like you've been warned. Yeah. That's what this one felt like. So I completely understand you. I wouldn't say it was disappointing, but to me, I would say I was a little underwhelmed because I wanted I kind of would say I wanted an absolute ending, and we basically got a to be continued. We got a end credit scene where it shows something worse is about to come.
Yeah.
So I'm happy, but at the same time a little underwhelmed, but I was still pretty satisfied. I mean, this is nowhere near as bad as Original Sin. Now that was horrible, but we won't get into that now because this is about Absolute Carnage.
You know, with Absolute Carnage, I was happy to at least have Venom versus Carnage. I kind of wish it lasted just a couple more panels, because this was our big battle, and some crossovers won't even give you that big battle in the final issue, you know, and that's often what disappoints me. So I'm happy that I got the battle. I'm happy to have powered up Carnage versus powered up Venom. I guess the thing that got me, for better or worse, going back to Maximum Carnage was like a year-long crossover, and it felt like that happened all across the city. It was a big battle. Once we got towards the end, it went from one place to another place. And I'm not saying this didn't happen all across the city, but because we're tying this up in like not even 6 issues, 5 issues, and I guess all of the opponents are already, all the pieces of the puzzle are already put together, they didn't drag it out. And I guess I was kind of selfish. Maybe I wanted them to drag it out a little more.
Yeah.
I did like how badass Carnage looked in the end. I think this whole storyline was a redemption for Carnage, because I feel like he's kind of been a joke over the last 10 or 15 years.
He was kind of a one-note character, and he definitely was a product of the 90s, because once it's almost like in wrestling where you want someone to be a heel so bad, but they're getting such a good reception that they end up becoming face kind of by accident. Right. That's what happened with Venom. With Venom, he was also a product of the late 80s, early 90s, but people started loving him so much because he was a cooler, more violent version of Spider-Man that they needed to up the ante, and they needed to make an even more evil Venom or a badder Venom. So they're like, all right, let's make this guy red, the color of blood, and let's make him, you know,
have pointy ends.
Yeah, exactly. And then they basically took the Joker's design and just threw a symbiote over it, because that's what Cleves Cassidy is. He is almost Marvel's counterpart of the Joker, with a violent alien living all over his body. So,
right.
So, yeah, I mean, Carnage. This is a redemption story for him, and the same way that they kind of gave more of a backstory and more of a life to Venom and Eddie, they've done that now with Carnage. And instead of just making him the red offshoot of Venom, which he was for a long time, now he kind of has his own backstory and his own belonging to the universe and his own reason for doing the things he does. Yeah,
he's not just killing for the sake of killing, which he was perfectly fine doing before. But now, I guess, having this goal and having this drive other than I'm gonna kill you really made him become a way more powerful villain than we expected. one that can be taken seriously, one that you could build an event around and put his name on the title of the cover.
Yeah.
So I was kind of happy to see that as someone who loved Maximum Carnage, or now I say it right, Maximum Carnage, the video games, the toys, seeing him in the animated series. I was a big mark for Carnage. Now seeing him kind of get his, I won't say his just due, but seeing him rise to that prominence again, and then in this final, just kind of in this final moment, still being Cletus Cassidy in the end, because he basically tells Eddie Brock that I'm going after Dylan, I'm coming for you, and it doesn't matter who wins, because if you can either save your son or you can save the world, and either way I win. You save your son, all of the codices will still be here. There's still enough of us here to wake up Knull. Mm-hmm. But you let me kill him, maybe, you know, he stays asleep. And I don't even know if that's true. You can't even, like, really trust him. But either way, I win. Either Knull wakes or your kid dies. And it seems like, regardless it's happening, because they were all there anyway.
Yeah.
Like even Venom was starting to feel that he was part of the hive mind. He was aware of what other the symbiotes were thinking. Carnage was even able to hear what Venom was thinking. Yeah. They could all feel each other. So I believe that Knull was going to wake up regardless, and Carnage, win, lose, or draw, he still feels like he's the winner. And I thought that was pretty badass of him.
Yep, that's a very Carnage-y thing for Carnage to do. And let's not forget to point out that the whole time while this is going on, Dylan still has no idea that he's Eddie's son.
No.
Throughout the whole time.
No.
So he's just part of this whole plan, and he's in the mix of everything, and he's thinking that he's Eddie's little brother the whole time.
Yeah.
Has no idea. He's watching his papa get beat up, and his father's protecting him,
and he's even displayed a little bit of power himself.
Yes,
I don't even know what he did.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that was, as far as it looked like he was being attacked by some of the other, I guess you could say, Carnage drones.
Yeah.
And he just kind of, like force choked or force exploded or.
Like if you've ever put ragu sauce in the microwave for too long, with the top on it. That's basically what he did to the symbiotes, or symbiotes, as Marvel would want us to have them be called, which I'll never do.
I don't know.
But yeah. So he basically ragu in the microwave effect. There we go. And he basically blew up the symbiotes. And we don't know how he did it. We don't know what power he has living inside of him. Maybe because he was born of Eddie Brock, already having born the symbiote. Maybe that's entrenched into his DNA at this point. But he's displaying some powers that I've never seen any of the symbiotes display. So,
and the thing that was kind of like hinted, but I don't really know exactly how that works. Like, I can say what was hinted, but I don't exactly know what it means. Was that he's not, I guess, an actual like child born of embryo, you know, birthed through the canal. Yeah. He wasn't born of normal means. He's Jesus. Wait, no, he's not Jesus. But he himself may have been a codice come to life. He is the living, I guess, attachment of what would be his mother. Because his mother who also wore a symbiote, didn't have a codice, but it wasn't removed by Carnage.
Did they ever say who his mother? Is it Anne Wayne? Do you think that? Because remember, when they go back and they look through the pit of bodies of anyone who ever wore a symbiote, her body was one of the ones that they didn't find. Remember, they found everyone else's body who's ever worn a symbiote.
Yes.
Hers was never recovered, which makes me to believe maybe they did have her body, maybe they did use her womb to birth Dylan, which is never, they never revealed who his mother is.
Yeah, there's only been hints, so I don't really know. And I'm excited to see what happens, because there's still so much mystery, not just to us, but to Dylan himself, who also doesn't know. But he does eventually learn that Eddie is his father because Spider-Man spilled the beans.
Yep. Spider-Man definitely spilled the beans.
Come on, Pete.
Snitch. Which actually Eddie Brock finally does at the end of I would say Peter Parker goes more into telling Eddie, you need to tell him that he's your son. And he kind of pushes him in that direction. And then at the end of the episode, when they're both beat up, they're spent, they have nothing left in them, he kind of looks over at him and tells him, hey, you're my son. You know, it reveals it right there.
Oh, that's right. That's Venom's fault. I'm sorry, Pete.
Yeah.
He actually does say, stay away from my son, or something along the lines of that to Carnage.
Yeah.
Or it was even Carnage saying that I'll kill your son. So I'm sorry, Pete. I know you're a fictional character and can't hear me, but cosplayers, you know, can you forgive me on his behalf?
And one thing I wanted to point out also, which was a cool, I would say, throwback to the original Venom reveal. Now, if you remember in the comic books, when Venom is first revealed, he doesn't set off Peter's spider sense, or maybe he does, I don't remember exactly. But he's standing on waiting for the train, and a hand pushes him in front of the train. I don't know if you remember that. From way back in the day, the first reveal of Venom. Now, in Absolute Carnage, they did a throwback to that where a guy in a trench, in a whole trench coat and the hat, he pushes Venom. No. He doesn't. I think the Carnage symbiote pushes Venom onto the train tracks the same way that Venom back in the day pushed Spider-Man onto the train tracks. And then, of course, the Venom symbiote comes wearing a trench coat like a creeper, and he saves him. But I think that was a nice little... Yeah. I think that was a nice little throwback, though, to the first reveal of Venom. And then they did a callback to it in these comic books, which I liked a lot.
There's a lot of things to really appreciate from these books. One of my favorite moments in number 5 is this actually a moment where Peter Parker and Eddie Brock embrace in a hug, and Peter doesn't know necessarily whether to address him as friend. It's like, hey, that's what whatever we are is for. It's like, I've got your back. It's in later issues of Venom, and because I'm not going to have the chance to, cover all of the Venom issues, but there's a point where Venom actually gets to meet Steve Rogers. That's not in these issues, but he does meet Captain America. And he's not necessarily invited on the Avengers team, but he's basically being invited to the tower to meet other Avengers, and Cap lets him know that I'm aware of what you've done, and you have a spot on the team. You have my vote, to become an Avenger. That's not a thing that I ever imagined for Venom. And it's really cool seeing this growth of character. Going back to kind of what we were saying in the beginning, the growth, the evolution of Eddie Brock and Venom.
Exactly, which ties in with Marvel just wanting to make him more of a prominent character, because, like I said, Venom has always been there. He's always been cool. People love him. But he's always had limited series. He's never really had his own long-running comic book. Sometimes they would run for 20 issues, 30 issues, or less than that, then they would be cut off, and then he would just be a side note in Spider-Man stories or someone else's stories. So with him going more mainstream and him having the movies now, I think Marvel really is trying to make a dedicated effort to make him more of a front runner and actually involve him in some of the bigger storylines and put him on some of the bigger teams. Because the last time we saw Venom on a team, it was actually, I'd say, Flash Thompson, and it was Guardians of the Galaxy, from what I remember.
Yeah.
And he became Space Agent Venom and had a whole new suit, which I wasn't a big fan of. But, they've been trying, and I feel like now...
But that helped lead to where we are.
That's true. That is true.
I have not read those issues of Guardians of the Galaxy, but I am aware that these were kind of the origins to where we are now, because it was from those pages of Guardians of the Galaxy that we find out that Venom has a home planet, like a planet of symbiotes.
Yeah.
And it was that very beginning that led to their own evolution of, it's not really a planet, it's a prison. And all of, that sphere that looks like a planet is actually a bunch of other symbiotes surrounding Knull. And now, as we mentioned, the bigger bad is coming. Knull is awake, and he's riding towards us from however deep in the abyss of the cosmos that he is. He's coming for Earth. He's probably coming for everybody, but he's coming for Earth. And I think another part that I really enjoyed from this, nobody knows but Venom.
No one knows but
No one knows.
Venom, Eddie Brock, which at the end of the issue, I think it's kind of messed up. They're like, so I guess we're all safe now, and he's like, we're all safe, and in his head he's like, we're definitely not.
Yeah.
And he can see that they're all coming. There's like a bunch of dragons and gnolls riding on top of one of them.
Yeah.
And they're all headed to Earth. So whatever is going to happen next is not good. It's not good at all.
I'm hyped for it though.
Yeah, definitely.
You have a personal favorite moment in these books?
Man, there were a few moments, like one of the funny moments to me is when Spider-Man, I mean, they're backed into a corner. Spider-Man and Venom are fighting a bunch of symbiotes, and they look like doppelgangers and stuff like that. And they're basically surrounded. They're in a corner. It's either run or die. So they choose to run. And, Venom breaks through the wall. He gets him out of there. And then Venom just sprouts wings and starts flying. And Spider-Man's super surprised by that. He's like, when did you start doing this? And Venom just sprouts wings and just, they book it out of there. So there's just so many different moments of growth and new powers being revealed, and just, showing the full capacity of what Venom can be, what he can do, which this was alluded to back in the day. I forgot what the name of the storyline was, but basically when they were all in hell and it was him, Ghost Rider, Venom, and Damon Hellstrom. I think Mephisto or somebody told Venom at that point, which was being warned by Flash Thompson. He told him, he's like, you're part of something way bigger than you know.
Yeah.
And they never really revealed what it was there, but he said, you're not just a symbiote. There's something evil living inside of you, and you're part of a bigger evil. And now we finally find out what that bigger evil was in Absolute Carnage, and over the reveal of Knull and that whole, all of those things. So,
and that's gonna be wild. Because when he does come, he's tied into the Guardians of the Galaxy, because they used to chill in nowhere.
Yep.
He's tied to Thor. Now Thor has been given granted the power cosmic by Galactus. He's now like of the cosmic god of thunder right now. So he has all these ties to all these different characters, and it's gonna be crazy once he does arrive. You mind if I ask some non-Spider-Man questions since I got you here?
Shoot.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. So we know that there are some ties to hip-hop in comic books. I think there's an idea that comic book fans are just one type of fan, and they don't realize how deep that culture reaches to everywhere. I want to know like your favorite, I guess, AKA in hip hop. Because what I thought was funny was I had bought this mixtape, and it was DJ Silver Surfer. And I know Danger Mouse got the Dr. Doom mask.
MF Doom.
MF Doom, my bad.
Yeah.
And so it was, I want to know your favorite hip-hop comic book tie.
You know what? There's so many, because here's the thing, and I've always said this, especially in earlier hip-hop, they were deeply tied to comic books because we didn't have the internet around back then. We didn't have Netflix. So a lot of us grew up, just like anybody else back in the days, we grew up reading a lot of print, whether it was magazine, whether it was a newspaper. We were influenced by it. So a lot of rappers of yore, they grew up reading comic books and they were influenced by it. Nas grew up reading Spider-Man and drawing. Eminem, you can actually look it up on the internet. He has drawings that he's done, and he used to draw Spider-Man all the time too. A lot of these guys were influenced by comic books, and whether you have Wu-Tang, who, just off the top of my head, Method Man calls himself Johnny Blaze, which everybody knows is the Ghost Rider, and Ghostface calls himself Tony Stark, which everyone knows is Iron Man.
He even appeared in the Iron Man movie.
As a deleted cutscene. He never made it in the actual movie. It was a deleted cutscene, but he was so known as Tony Stark in the hip hop world that he actually ended up being granted a cameo on the Iron Man movie. As far as me having a favorite AKA, there's so many, man. There's so many. But I would say the one that's probably stuck the most is, I would say, Tony Stark. Ghostface's Tony Stark. And I would say the person who's represented it probably the best would be MF Doom. Because this guy, he embodies Dr. Doom so much that at some shows you don't know if it's him performing or someone wearing the mask. And he calls them Doombots. He calls them Doombots, and you never know if it's the actual guy performing his set or a guy in a Doombot mask performing as him, just very much as Dr. Doom would do. A lot of times they would defeat Dr. Doom in the comic books, and it wouldn't be him. It would be a Doombot. Yeah. So that's very cool. But hip hop and comic books have always been intertwined. That's always been one of my little arguments or things that I would talk about. And I would also say hip hop and video games grew up together because they both really started coming in at the same time, you know, during the late 70s and into the early 80s. So, yeah. And for those of you who want to see just how intertwined hip-hop and comic books can be, listen to this song by The Last Emperor called Secret Wars, where he compares a bunch of rappers to different comic book characters.
Awesome, man. Yo, I'm so thankful to have you here, Chris, man.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I mean, you know what? You popped my podcast cherry. This is my first time being on a podcast.
Hey, yeah, you know, we're podcasting, vlogging, video streaming. We're doing it all here on To Be Seen. I'm very glad to be part of this. Very glad to have you with us. Where can we hit you up? I know you're on Instagram.
Yeah, make sure you hit me up on Instagram at No Continues. There's a lot of nerdy goodness on there, whether it be comic books, video games, and I happen to wrap all of that in a hip-hop packaging. So I'm the biggest hip-hop nerd you'll ever find. And while I'm there, because I didn't want to forget to do this, but you started this and I wanted to do it in person, so he's been poked back. I wanted to wait till I saw you in person because you poked me on Facebook, and I said, you know what? I said I'm gonna have to see this guy face to face.
I'm really showing my age though. Nobody even I feel like if any young ones are even using Facebook, they don't even know about the poke. Like what the?
Yeah, the poke feature went the way of the arcade. I mean, you're pretty much gone now, but you're bringing it back. So I had to poke you back in person.
Yeah, I couldn't even. I felt a little weird doing it because over the years, like poke became a very sexual thing.
Yeah.
It's like you couldn't just poke your friend.
The poke was definitely creepy.
What are you doing?
If a man poked me at night, there's a possibility I'd call the cops on him.
Well, you just poked me on camera, so I'm gonna call the cops. We got the evidence. Chris, thanks again for showing up. I am Brandon. This is Comic Conversation. You can find us here on To Be Seen. Be sure to like the page. Subscribe, like the episode if you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. Share it with your friends. You can hit us up on Twitter at Comic Convo, COMICONVO. Woo! You can hit me up on Instagram or on Twitter at Lewis or Brandon because I never know which name to use. But here I'm Brandon. But hit me up at Lewis or Brandon. And yeah, this has been Absolute Carnage.
Thank you. And I know you as Lewis. Goodbye, guys.
Bye. Whip.